Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Talk About Podcast.
Welcome to the Center for Technological Innovation and Entrepreneurship podcast. My name is Pierre Jean, and today I'm going to be your host. In this episode, we are going to talk about innovation and career, the employee perspective. And I'd like to welcome Fiona. Fiona, welcome, and thank you for accepting our invitation today. So, and the first question that I'm going to ask you is about yourself. So who is Fiona, and what's your background, and what are you coming from, and etc. So I think people would like to know more about you.
Great. Thank you, Pierre, for hosting me. Really happy to be here with you. So basically I'm former student of business school as well. Started at Sciences Po Rennes, so in France, doing like business administration then, and did a master at ESCP in marketing and creativity already 7 years ago. And after this, doing a lot of different internships, always in around marketing and fashion, actually, from Sephora to ASOS to Burberry. I had a different life basically on the fashion ecosystem. I really wanted to actually build my own startup, and started directly from school to actually entrepreneurship, and started to build this company called Rendezvous, which was a peer-to-peer and designers fashion rental marketplace. And at the time, we were really quite new in this field. It was really the time of sharing economy, and nothing was happening in the fashion area. And then after 3 years of intense work, I moved to another startup, learning a lot from this experience. I moved to a startup called French Founders, going back to my French roots, which is a network of entrepreneurs and investors, French-speaking, all over the world, with the idea to really connect entrepreneurs and the ecosystem together, opening them new opportunities, and through basically direct connections. And 1.5 years ago, I moved to Farfetch, going back to my fashion roots, and moving there in London as an innovation principal, basically going back also to my entrepreneurship roots, but really making the bridge between entrepreneurship and basically the more corporate world.
Wow, excellent, thanks. So you've been working quite a lot in startup actually after you left ESCP. So ESCP, for the people that don't know that yet, it's École Supérieure de Commerce de Paris. And so you moved into the startup world just after, correct?
Exactly, just after.
Okay, excellent. And before we get into the details about this jump on moving from your startup and the startup ecosystem to Farfetch, also would like to ask you about where you currently are. So you've been living in Paris, in London, etc. And where are you at this moment of your life? And why did you choose actually to come to this place?
Yes, so big teasing. I'm actually in Lisbon, and it's a real choice. It's definitely a choice. I made my company basically relocating me in November, so it's been a few months only after 8 years in London. And why this choice? Because I really believe in Portugal as a new ecosystem for innovation and for startups. I feel that there is a lot of energy going on. There's a lot of talent coming. There's a lot of inherent talent as well from a tech perspective, but not only. There is a real culture of, working, which I felt in my company. I'm feeling every day in my company as well, working directly with the Portuguese teams here and in Porto. But also there is a kind of simplicity that I really like, and I feel that there is also maybe less noise than in some other very crowded startup ecosystem, which I feel very positive. I think there is a very positive vibe, and people are also very eager to do things and to learn. So yes, I really feel that there is the right setup for innovation here.
Okay, so in Lisbon is so a choice of yours. You've been able to relocate. So far since November, I guess you didn't have a lot of chances to really go out because of COVID, but you've been able to meet the ecosystem and other people in the Lisbon ecosystem already?
A bit. So I think what is really interesting is to see that so many people are actually making this place as a hub. So French people that I know, some French entrepreneurs being here, even for temporary time, but really finding this place as a inspiration place for them to work, and so from entrepreneurs to even investors, there are some also famous investors in France that are here. So I think it's a great ecosystem, but not only from France. I mean, I met some entrepreneurs from the US being here, from Germany. So I think it's just really great also to be able to meet all of these people. And I think the Portuguese ecosystem, I don't know it so well yet, but of course with Farfetch we already have some good connections. We have worked in the past with different Portuguese startups. We used to have an accelerator called Dream Assembly, and some of the company were Portuguese. Digimo, notably, for instance, in Porto, on digital avatars, we worked a lot with them, but a lot of other. And yes, I think that it's positive. We definitely also have the will to have the Portuguese ecosystem. It's clearly part of our DNA with our founder, José Neves. I need to be able to pronounce much better Portuguese now.
I think what you're saying is very interesting. I'm going to give you the perspective on the students from Católica, and we have actually a lot of international students that come over here in Lisbon to study, and I would say some of them, perhaps not half, but perhaps a little bit like 30 to 50% of them, they're actually willing to stay and start a business or work in Lisbon because some of the points you mentioned, about the ecosystem here, the way people work, the ability to meet new people in the community, etc. So I think it's interesting to have your point of view on that, and also knowing that, for example, even now we have a few of the student startups that want to actually build their own startup here, even if they're German, they want to build here in Lisbon. So I think the reasons that you mentioned are something also that people relate to, at the school. Excellent. So, and you mentioned a little bit on Farfetch. I think everyone here on this podcast know Farfetch or have heard about Farfetch. And now what I'd like to ask you a little bit and to explore is the move that you did from your startup ecosystem or your startups to Farfetch. This is something that the students, and perhaps the people that are listening would like to understand. Is like working in your startup and after moving to Farfetch, that is perhaps still a startup but much bigger than perhaps your previous startup. How is that to work with such a mature startup? Is that too organized? Is that still the sense of startup that you can do things and grow fast, or you in Farfetch you already have this kind of processes oriented kind of culture? Or can you share with us what's your feedback on jumping on the wagon with this big Farfetch company?
Yes. So no, clearly coming from a very agile and small ecosystem and structure, like Farfetch is definitely not the same. It's massive today. It's a big multinational, and but what is interesting is that there is the right spirit and the DNA. Like the DNA of the company is really a startup. It has been created this way. It has been it started from scratch. The founder is still here. It's still having the vision. It's still so even if the company is public now, there's really a very high control of the direction and how we want to move forward, coming really from the DNA of the company. So innovation is really at the core of what the company is doing. We were really the first one doing a marketplace that enabled boutiques to sell online, and that was really revolutionary at the time. It was in 2007, and there was it was really not the right ecosystem for luxury yet, and we were really the first one for a lot of boutiques to enable them to sell online and also to sell to China. So we were really their first window to the world, basically. And of course, also the key aspect is that we were not holding any stock. So compared to Net-a-Porter or competitors, we are not holding any stock. We are just a pure marketplace. And what was really different is that we started as a tech company. So our founder is a former developer, and this kind of entry point was very new in the luxury space. Everyone was very brand oriented, very expert in the luxury area, but absolutely not in tech. So that gave us a massive entry point with the brand, and that's the way we really created trust among the ecosystem. Okay,
and focusing now on the innovation at Farfetch, is you mentioned a little bit how it scaled since 2007 to now, and the window to China, and innovation as the core. But tell us a little bit, perhaps also how it changed. I mean, my feeling and the feeling of some of the people listening is that it revolutionized the way we can have access to luxury goods and luxury fashion goods. So is that something that having a marketplace like Farfetch allows us to be closer to these brands, have perhaps more intimacy with them, can eventually, instead of going to some stores, going there and perhaps convert or buy easier in an easier way than going to a store? How is that? How did that change your own way of saying how it changed the luxury fashion goods?
Yeah, so I think the goal for us was really to, translate the luxury experience online and with the same kind of level of excellence and quality. And that was really important from day one, to preserve also, the brand's identity, to make sure that it's very consistent with the way, the customer journey. And that's why we focused a lot on the curation. The curation has been really, really key. So really making sure we have the right product and we have the perfect way of displaying this product. That's why we still own the way we are making the picture. So if we don't own any stock, 90% of our products are actually shot in-house. So we do have the product for a specific, for a short period of time, in our studio in Portugal or in Hong Kong or Los Angeles, where we have a studio, and we shoot them in a very specific way, and that's really part of our DNA. So we do this, the curation, very important, the way we are making our pictures, and we really are the first interface to our customer, so we make it super consistent. So basically, the customer is not interacting with the boutique; they don't even know usually where the product is coming from. But we have such a depth in terms of product because we are aggregating all of this supply that sometimes we have the same product, from different boutiques, And depending on where it's come from, depending on the initial cost, we offer the best product basically to the right customer. So we optimize basically the supply to the right customer. And yes, we really try to create the best luxury experience end to end, up to delivery and returns, and really making sure that the customer feel that this is a very exclusive experience from the beginning.
Okay. Now thinking a little bit about some of the students that would be listening to you actually and to this podcast. Some of them mention on the recurrent basis, that sustainability and fashion sometimes don't go, together, or that to grow or to have to touch a broader number of people, perhaps fashion should be more sustainable. So there's a lot of discussions about, how to make fashion more sustainable. What's the view of and perhaps innovation and sustainability in Farfetch? Like, what do you see that as a problem? Do you see that as an opportunity for the sustainability? How do you see that as an innovation principle?
Yeah, no. So for us, it's definitely like a core concern, and the goal for us is really to optimize the process that we have. Basically make sure that we can simplify, but we can also improve the way we are doing things, and especially when you think about delivery, returns, packaging, all the operational side that is actually very energy consuming. So really the idea is to decrease emissions for sure. And we set up some very important goals as well for the company. So by 2030, we really want to make sure that we have 100% of our products really sustainable. So that's really a core vision of the company. And everything is made today with the idea that we are going to reduce our emissions. So that's what, from an innovation perspective, I think it's our key entry point, because we can prove that we can add value without damaging the luxury experience, or actually also the profitability by integrating sustainability. So some examples, for instance, that were interesting, called Second Life, which is basically a second-hand marketplace. So it's a second-hand portal to enable our customers to resell their luxury bags via Farfetch, and we partner with a startup to do so. They basically handle the whole operation side and the back-end process, and we were really the first interface to the client. So we are not selling the bags on Farfetch. They have their own distribution channel, but what we do is that we encourage our customers to resell their bags through us, and we convert the market value of the bag into Farfetch voucher. So basically, that has been really a way for us to first educate our customers to sustainability and to the idea that they can recycle and make value from their wardrobe. But also really engaging and creating more retention from our clients, and even educating people to Farfetch. We had also an incredible number of people that started to be engaged through Second Life and never bought on Farfetch before. So that was also a way for them to actually buy on Farfetch. So that's exactly an example that proves that actually sustainability is also a way to engage and increase conversion.
Okay, because this sustainability point with all the students and and trying to create their own startup, we have a number of students that want to make sure that what we buy, we know where it's coming from, what was the CO2 that was used for shipping from one continent to the other, etc. So there is more and more knowledge or willingness to know about what we buy. and how sustainable this is. So it was interesting to hear your points on Farfetch for that, and especially Second Life, and interesting. Thanks. So
and just some on some kind of parallel initiative, we just launched as well Farfetch Fix, which is also with another startup called the Restory, which is about offering our clients some repair services to basically repair their shoes and their clothes that they bought on Farfetch, and that's new as well. So and we are also, of course, pushing pre-owned, meaning like second hand from vintage stores, basically, that we have online. Yes, so moving forward, we also really have a supply chain and how can I say, traceability concern from our products. So we really want to make sure that all of our products, from Farfetch to Brand, which is a retailer that we acquired as well, NGG, which is a group of brands that we have involving Off-White, Palm Angel, and so on, and Stadium Goods, which is a sneaker reseller. All of them, we really want to make sure that they have 100% conscious products that really are accredited, recognized like conscious products, such as organic, recycle, and so on. And this really is our goal for 2030.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that on Farfetch and all this information. Now what I'd like to do is bring you back to your first startup experience and perhaps provide a contrast on that. And so you're also a founder of Rendezvous, and we'd like now, with all the experience you have with Farfetch and all the different positions you had, if we look back at Rendezvous, how was that experience at the time? What did you learn that helped you out to actually succeed now at Farfetch?
Yeah, I think it was really a great learning curve, because of course, like when I started, I was 24, 25, and it was really a different ecosystem as well. Like it was not an ecosystem really. Like entrepreneurship was not like so mainstream, let's say, like it was not so common. I was the only one of my class basically going to entrepreneurship. And it was really seen as a risk. And I can understand as well, like my parents freaked out completely after my master. And I didn't really know where I was going. The ecosystem was not so structured. I was between Paris and London. But I was also able to seize opportunities as it was still a very, pioneering playground. So basically UK Trade and Investment, I was in London. They created the graduate entrepreneur scheme, and I was part of this, and I managed to get a grant to basically start my company as a foreign graduate entrepreneur. That enabled me to have me and my team being able to basically get funded for a year. So enough to basically live and so on. So that was really great. We had access to an accelerator as well in London. So we really seized opportunity from, I think London was a very good playground also to access opportunities. And I've learned a lot on the journey. I think from day one, I understood that I had to make the most of each minute, whether it was at the school, because I started during the master, at the school or externally. So any class for me any course for me was an opportunity to shape better my model, confirm, validate some assumptions. I really felt grateful to be able to leverage the ecosystem of teachers as well. I think that what is super interesting being in a master and focusing on entrepreneurship is that you really have access to a network of experts and you can really leverage this network of experts. These people are here to really help you. And I got so many connections from the teachers as well. So any opportunity, any meeting was an opportunity to make basically my concept improved. And the switch happened with the accelerator when I had the opportunity to really start online. But I did everything offline for a long time initially, really to prove the concept, because we were the first one doing peer-to-peer fashion rentals that didn't exist before. So we had to really educate people from the beginning, and the best way for us was really how to connect people differently through fashion and how to prove the concept without any tech. So we did this event where people were actually meeting, renting to each other. We shaped an experience around it, like a full shopping journey. And we made that from flat to hairdresser we really kind of pushed the boundary of retail to prove that this concept could go anywhere. And then we switched it online, basically, on a more online marketplace once we had the community.
Tell me one thing, as looking at the students that, and when you were a student at the time, and between the time you were a student and you were looking at this idea and building it up and getting the feedback from mentors, etc., up to a point that you said, okay, we are ready, let's go and launch that and starting having customers. Where do you see the most difficult part in between, finishing as a student and starting your company? Is getting the right amount of mentoring, getting cash, getting support from other people? Where do you see is one of the reasons why you succeeded at the time is because what? The mentors, the money you were from the brand, or how, if you look backwards, what would you say was the first success factor that helped you out?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things, and this kind of multi-dimensional approach is key, because you need to move on a lot of different directions at the same time. I think being surrounded well is key, and it's not easy, especially when you get out of school, from a credibility perspective as well. Some people might not take you seriously. And you also need to identify the right people, and I think that this is not easy, because you tend to go to people that are like you. So being surrounded well, I think it's more than cash or so on. It's really to get the right people that will give you the right reference points. I think, and I think another challenge is management. I think that clearly, getting out from school, you are not ready to manage a team, or you don't have so many of these skills, and I think this is something to be aware of and kind of learn on the journey, because that's the challenge that is coming as well.
This is interesting because we just launched what we call a pre-accelerator program at the school that actually helps out people that are coming out of the school to get into an incubator, and to help them in the journey between these 2 points. And really one of the key things they asked us, and we've been looking at, is really mentorship and helping out these people to get the right connection to grow, and putting them in the ecosystem, getting the right people to get the feedback, etc. One of the things that we believe can also help these people to grow and get to the next step. So it was interesting to hear you, especially on the right people and getting the right feedback on that. So now looking at and back to the entrepreneur itself, and the youngster that are looking at or listening to you at this point, is some of them, they think that an entrepreneur is like kind of a rock star. You come, you win, you make a lot of cash, and after you get your company going. What would you say, or what would be your feeling on the entrepreneur? Is that more the rock star, or is that more hard work in the backstage, or how would you see? What would be your view on the entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of hype and there's been a lot of noise around entrepreneurship, and I think it can be, dangerous in some ways because there's a lot of disillusion as well, because clearly entrepreneurship is hard, and there's different way of successing, I feel, in entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is more a journey than, really like a function, I would say. Like you can be an entrepreneur in your job. You can have a job in a big corporate group and still be an entrepreneur. And I think it's really a mindset, and you need to cultivate this mindset over the journey, because projects will go and flow, and it's like a startup is still one project. So I think it's important to have this in mind. That it's not just, there's not one definition of being an entrepreneur. And yes, I think the Silicon Valley, model brought a lot of very stereotyped kind of vision of what is an entrepreneur, what is success. And there's a lot of, it can really harm people in terms of their confidence, trust, and what they can do and what they can't do, and also perception of failure. I think that clearly 90% of the startups fail. Mine failed as well, and I think it's important to have in mind that failure is also part of the journey. And again, I think entrepreneurship is just an opportunity to learn and grow and get more aware of your skills and how you can use these skills in your life, basically, not just for a specific project. So so I think it's not rock star. It's really about persistency. It's about also self-awareness, understanding your strengths, your weakness, how you compensate this weakness with the right people. It's a lot of human relationships. And I think I think it's a long tail, but it's also knowing how and when to move forward potentially. I think the difficulty is also not to be taken in your own startup too much, because sometimes it's the fact to the ability to say stop. It's super hard, especially when it's your own project and when maybe you are by yourself or so on. And it's also part of the entrepreneurship journey to be able to say, okay, I think I'm done. I think this is it. I need to be able to move forward to another project, and that's also part of it. So I think this is
I think this is a very, very interesting description, especially the one you mentioned about the ability to move on. What we discuss with the students is that you have to have the grit to move on, the willingness and the strength. But at some point, you're going to have to look at things and you're going to have to say, perhaps now, I have to decide. And this moment that you have to decide is super, super, super difficult for most of the people, because this is your baby, this is your project. You have been investing so much time and money inside in your relationship, etc. And describing that is interesting, because sometimes people get stuck and they put more and more effort, more and more money in something that at some point will not. They already feel it's not possible, but they still continue invest. And sometimes the best thing actually is to have the ability to decide at some point, perhaps I need to get out, or I need to do something else, because now it's not moving on. And I think this point is super important.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to feel that you are, an entrepreneur for life, but not an entrepreneur for your project only. And I think this is why you need to enable yourself as well to move to new projects and not be locked into one project only. And there's so much noise. I think that's one of the biggest difficulties for entrepreneurship and startups today, is that there is so much noise happening around and a lot of social pressure, but that you always distracted by, on what you are doing, or you always have a positive sign that will make you think that you need to move forward. PR, anything competition and so on. And so this is why it's so hard to start, because you always have something that makes you feel, okay, I'm going to pursue it. So you need to step back and see, okay, what's really the situation here, and what should I do?
Brilliant, excellent take. Thanks. Moving on to one of the things that students ask to people like you during the classes usually is, especially at the end of let's say the master degree, they will ask us, I really love my business idea or the one I've been developing in the past month in this specific class, etc. But should I start as an entrepreneur, or should I start with a bigger company and after come back and have my CV, pumped up and come back to entrepreneurship? So there's a lot of questions, and I know that when we ask these questions to people like you, entrepreneurs, we have sometimes different answers, and I'm eager to listen. What's your view on that? What would you recommend to someone coming out from a master degree, like 7 years ago, if it was you?
Yeah, I think that there is no, specific way of making it. I think it really depends on the person, the personality, and also the motivation. I think that if you have the energy, you should go for it, clearly, because this energy is precious and you may not have it later on. I really think that it's a chance to start a project early. I think that having the ability to start it during your master is great, because first, again, you benefit from a whole ecosystem, and people are here for you, so they would help you, they will support you, and I think that's something to seize. And also because that's the best way to test. I think that you also are not taking too many risks by testing this. So the more you can get before the end of the master, the better, I feel, because you can have some ideas. I think that again, even if you choose the road of entrepreneurship, there's always a way to connect the dots. So I feel that it's not like you are going to lose the opportunity of your lifetime opportunity of a job. I'm the first one to prove. I'm the proof of this. Like, my father was the first one to tell me, everyone is taking your job now. Like, you are just doing it, and now, there are all the new promotions and the new things. Like, everyone, you go in the market and they are taking the job. So you have a bit of the fear, of course, to be an outsider and how you are going to get back. And it's not so easy, and it might take time. Like, for me, it took a bit of time, because clearly the market was not there. Now people value entrepreneurs in the companies. They value these skills, but and also what is super interesting is, I feel, as an entrepreneur, you choose your company much more than the company choose you. Because I feel that as an entrepreneur, you have high expectations, and also what you want from a company, and people, especially, I guess. You are not going to go to a company that is not inspiring, or So I think that it's also very interesting, because that's a way for you to be much more free and aware of where you want to work and why you want to work for them. And I think that I'm the right example as well. Even if at the time when I stopped my company, Farfetch was not at this stage, and we were already in touch with some other people, and they didn't have anything innovation. I was saying that you need to have something in innovation, and it took 2-3 years for them to start doing this. But they came back to me also because of my startup, and not really because of what I've done in the middle, or And I think this is a great example of the fact that there is value. It might not be a direct value, and maybe you'll take different ways, but it's definitely an add-on on your journey, and it opens different perspectives. And it's not just about the project; it's really about the journey that you took and all the different skills you achieved from this project. So, and I think that was for me very difficult to do at the time, because I didn't have, I had to step back myself and think, okay, what did I do during this project? It's not just about fashion rental, it's about all the different things that I've managed by myself, And these are life skills, basically. And it's not about like, a project or job description. It's really all of these skills, how I can make the most of them, and how I can choose basically the right job based on these skills.
So you would say that you are now working at Farfetch because actually you were an entrepreneur before, and this is one of the reasons they selected you, correct?
Yes, totally. And my co-founder, I couldn't say co-founder, but she's my colleague. She's also a previous founder of a startup. We were actually in the same environment, and that's exactly why they chose us, because they wanted people that really understand the startup world, that could, that were also valuing and understanding the entrepreneur, and really could make the bridge with the culture of the company, and have this spirit, and that have this open innovation perspective. So definitely, I think, and it can be in very different areas. It doesn't have to be in innovation. I just feel that more and more this idea of building by partners is something that people see as a value. They know that you can't build everything internally. You don't have the time. You don't have the resources. It's not your focus. So it's also how to think strategically and at the right speed as well, to just shortcut processes and make sure we are keeping up with the pace, basically.
So very, very interesting point, and for all the students that are listening, is and asking if they should start with their own company or pursue what they believe is going to have impact on the world, or actually go to a bigger corporation. Your voice and what you just explained is important for them, because even if we go for a startup direction, and at some point we want to go back, or we have to go back to the corporate world, this is still an asset, and this asset is valued by potential employers after. So this is something important. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So now we're going to get to the next and the last question, and it's going to be about women entrepreneur and women starting their career. Especially being an entrepreneur and being a female entrepreneur, the numbers are here. First of all, there are few female entrepreneurs. Second, getting funding is also more difficult or not than male funders, etc. So in terms of going through all this journey from living from the master to now at Farfetch, and going through your own startup and the startup world, what would you say? What would the suggestion you provide to a young female entrepreneur that is passionate as you are and as you were when you created Rendezvous, and to go and make actually an impact on this world with the idea that they want to develop? So what, Fiona, would you be telling this new and this people that are coming out of school that want to get their startup off the ground? What would you tell them? What would you suggest? Tips? Yeah.
No, I think even more than before, it can to be really an opportunity to be a woman in this startup world, because first there is more and more awareness about this gap, and I think that you have like a chance to stand out clearly, because there is this awareness. So it's important to seize it, and I think it's changing really. Like the ecosystem is changing, the perception is changing. When I had my own startup first, it is true, I was like 25. I was a woman. I was in the fashion industry, so there were a lot of stereotypes. And even like business angels, I got some group of business angels that were like, actually, we're not looking at fashion opportunity, and like this is not about fashion. This is this is platform, this is e-commerce, and I think it's just like there was a lot of stereotypes on this, and I think that the world is changing. People are seeing things differently. They start assessing opportunities differently. So I think that just like going for it and getting to like, the space where there are not a lot of women is great. I think that from clearly from industry's perspective, creating the unexpected is great. It will always be an opportunity. So getting into not the expected industries, and also being surrounded well again, like maybe of course build up your skills. The more skills you have, the better. But getting the right people, I think it's all about spotting them. But yeah, I think being a woman is also like I think in terms of like soft skills, there's a lot to pick up from this in terms of like relationship, also the understanding, creating a team, creating the right energy. But yeah, I think it's all about seizing this gap and making the most of it, and don't hesitate to push the doors, or like push the doors where women are even more welcome, because I think that it's super important to just be opportunist about it. The world is changing for women. I think it's great to just make the most of it, and also this like kind of disturb or shake the industries where the move hasn't happened yet, because this is going to be the case.
Okay, thanks for the tips. So what was a pleasure to have you. Especially, I think what was interesting today is for you to share with us your journey from the master to your company to Farfetch, what you're doing currently at Farfetch, discussing the innovation there, as well as the initiatives that you have for sustainability. And also what was interesting on especially looking for the students and the female entrepreneur was really your perspective on learning from the startup, knowing where to stop, or where your project has to stop, because you're looking not only at your project, but this is kind of life approach that you have, moving from project to project. So this is important also for people that are in companies and not having their startups. So this is a good point. And the point that I think will stay here is that even if you move and you decided to go for a startup first, this experience was still valued when you went to a bigger or a larger company or corporation like Farfetch. And I think this is important for that to be said, and people understand that this is not a waste of time, that people will be learning with their own experience and trying to put their startup up. But at some point, even if they want to go back to the industry or go to a bigger corporation, they're going to be welcome, because they have learned actually other skills that's going to make them actually perform in this in their current environment. So I think
yes, and it really enable you to have the opportunity to shape your journey. And I think this is what is really important, is that compared to going directly into a job, like you have the opportunity to shape your journey from the beginning to the way you exit and the way you want to pursue this trajectory. So I think it's really about the trajectory and not only about the job. And again, like, yes, I think my experience is positive, because it's proving that the world is changing, that companies are valuing this, and that these skills are used day to day, basically, from scouting the right partners to creating trust to negotiating a contract, from legal perspective, from the way you build a product, everything is used. And I think the most important is the trust that you create with the startups, because these companies need this trust to happen, and they do need people like entrepreneurs to make this bridge. So that's really important, I feel. And again, I really believe that Lisbon and Portugal has a lot to deliver. There's a lot of opportunities here, whether it's from a local market, which I think is developing, but there's still a lot of opportunities, especially from an online perspective, when you think of so many things being offline. And also, of course, from an expat perspective, knowing the market growing here and how people what people will need here, their expectations. I think it's a really, really great playground to test concepts and to shape them from here, and then to be able to scale them. I think it's the perfect playground.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Thank you for your insights.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Talk About Podcast.